class, and I'm excited today because we're going to see the steps to World War II. So World War II, we know, begins at different times. The European war, part of the war begins 1939 with the invasion of Poland. But when we look at Japan, some historians will date that the Asian Wars beginning as far back as 1931. We know that World War II, we've just went over the causes, which come down to fail. F being the failure of the Treaty of Versailles, A being appeasement, I isolationism, and L the League of Nations failed. So let's start first of all with our totalitarian leaders expanding. Remember, our totalitarian leaders are Hitler of Germany, Stalin of Russia. Well, remember, it's the Soviet Union by this point. Mussolini of Italy, and you have Hirohito and Tojo in Japan. So, in 1931, Japan is going to invade Manchuria. It is this northern part of China because Japan is in the effects of the Great Depression. And one of the things that happens as a result of the Great Depression is Japan is going to become overly populated. So as a result of this overpopulation, one of the reasons is because of the Great Depression, U.S. no longer allows Japanese immigration into the United States. So Japan needs to expand its factories. So their idea is we need more raw materials. So we'll go colonize Manchuria, just the same way that the Europeans during the age of imperialism were doing. Japan wanted to be an imperial power. So the League of Nations protest that invasion, so Japan invading Manchuria. So in protest of the League of Nations, Japan says, we don't have to listen to this, and they leave the League of Nations. In 1937, Japan invades mainland China. Now remember, Japan at this time is involved in a civil war. You have the nationalists, and then who are situated on the coast, and by this point, by 1937, the communists under Mao have done the long march, and they are in central China. So, and we've already discussed the reasons that Japan invades. So you're having the Asian War break out a little bit later, a little bit earlier than the European War, with results of the need for Japan to expand, and Japan wanting to be an imperial power, doing exactly what the Europeans did. One thing to remember, though, that there is some European territory here. Italy, remember, Mussolini comes to power in 1920s. He is the first, he's totalitarian, he is the fascist dictator. He will be a role model for Adolf Hitler. And they begin to expand. They take Ethiopia in October of 1935. The ruler of Ethiopia is Haile Selassie, and he asked the League of Nations for help. The League of Nations is powerless to stop the invasion. They do put a boycott on Italy, but it is a very weak boycott. Haile Selassie makes a very famous statement at the League of Nations: today it is us, tomorrow it will be you. One of the reasons that this territory became important, it is the last part of Africa that is an independent nation, and in the 1890s, Ethiopia resisted Italian conquest and actually embarrassed the Italian army. So Mussolini wants to restore the glory of Rome, so he goes to Ethiopia and invades Ethiopia. The Germany will begin to take back the territory that it lost in the World War I. So it starts with going into the Rhineland, and we will talk about this more. Then it unites with the Austria, and then it will begin the battle for Czechoslovakia, taking first the German-speaking area of the Sudetenland. This is in response to the Treaty of Versailles, and Hitler wants to show the power of the German nation. So let's talk about how we get to World War II in Europe. So in 1935, Hitler announces he's going to expand the German army. Direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. 1935, Britain and France, they could have stopped Hitler at this point. They do nothing. Then in 1936, Hitler has his German army move into the Rhineland. Well, at this point, he has told those troops they're not strong enough to take the Rhineland. He has told the German troops who are marching into the Rhineland, the generals have orders. If they see any resistance by the French, they are to turn around and go back home. But the French don't mount any resistance. Britain doesn't mount any resistance. And once you have control of this little area, this Rhineland area, you now have access to France and Belgium. Plus, this lack of response tells Hitler he can get away with what he wants because nobody's going to stop him. And what's happening is each little part of Europe that Hitler takes will actually strengthen Hitler. March 1938, he annexes Austria. Annexes means to take. He literally marches the German army into Austria, and he says, "Oh, we're going to unite the people." It's called the Anschluss. Very important part in history. The Austrians actually welcome Hitler with open arms. Again, France and Great Britain and even the US are doing nothing. France and Great Britain make speeches saying it's wrong, but they don't have any military action. The US constitutes isolationism. One thing going on when Hitler takes Austria, the Jews in Austria are immediately subject to the same humiliations that the German Jews are, and many Austrian Jews will say what took Hitler what took Germany 5 years to complete will take less than 5 years in Austria. September 1938, we begin the policy of appeasement. In a way, you can say that France and Britain has been appeasing Germany since the Rhineland. Appeasement is this policy of where you give in so that you can get peace. It's almost like a parent and a kid. So, like when my daughter was little, I would take her to the grocery store, and if I would say she couldn't have a cookie, and she cried a little bit, I gave her the cookie. So, and then we're going to get it's going to get a little worse. So Hitler in 1936 takes the Rhineland. Mom and Dad, France and Britain say, "Oh, sweetie, go have the cookie." March 1938, Hitler takes another cookie. Austria. Mom and Dad say, "Oh, now, little Adolf, you really shouldn't have that cookie." And he goes, I want the cookie." And they say, "Fine, take the cookie, but that is your last one." Well, September 1938, and he demands the German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia known as the Sudetenland. Britain and France are allied with the Sudetenland. If he moves in, it's going to start war. So basically what Britain and France does is they tell little Adolf, "No cookie for you." Well, Adolf begins to throw the biggest tantrum. I want the Sudetenland. He's throwing a tantrum. He wants this. Britain and France are getting prepared for war. Then at the last minute, Britain and France blink. The Prime Minister of England at the time is a man named Chamberlain. Neville Chamberlain. And you know, if you have a Neville, Neville is not usually the bravest person. So Neville decides to appease Hitler. The Munich conference meets in September 29, 1938. Notice it is Italy, Germany, Great Britain, and France. The USSR and Czechoslovakia are not invited. Both probably should have been invited. One, because the USSR, when you move Germany towards Czechoslovakia, that's moving it closer to Soviet territory. Plus Czechoslovakia, you're giving their land. The Sudetenland goes to Germany, and Hitler says, This is the last piece of land I take. I don't want any more land. Appeasement. Well, March 1939, Hitler goes, I want another cookie. I want the rest of Czechoslovakia. The Allied powers say, well, okay, Adolf, but this is the very last cookie. So all of this is happening. And what's happening is with each piece of territory that Hitler takes, becoming more and more, he's becoming stronger. In August 23rd, 1939, Hitler makes a secret deal with the Soviets because he knows his next target is Poland. If he moves into Poland, he becomes a direct threat to Stalin. He does not want to go to war with Stalin because, well, he doesn't think Britain and France are going to go to war. He wants to hedge his bets because he does not want to fight a two-front war. So they agree secretly, they meet, they agree not to attack each other for 10 years. We've got two big egos, we know how that's going to do, and they're going to divide Poland. And then they're going to divide the Baltic republics between themselves. So they are making this deal. And once that deal is made, in September 1st, 1939, this is going to be the end of appeasement because Germany is going to invade Poland and Britain and France are going to declare war. Well, the German army is moving in from the from their side of Poland and Russia is coming from their side. Poland will not last very long under the fighting. So where is the U.S.'s role in this? Well, remember, the U.S. is practicing isolationism. It's Europe's problems, it's not ours. One of the things that they learned from World War I is not to be involved. So Congress immediately passes around the 1930s the Neutrality Acts, which will not allow banks to loan any money or there will be no trade with warring nations. So that way we will not be economically tied and we are going to do everything we can to avoid war. Once you get 1939, the invasion of Poland, and you get through the 1940s, you do have a president, FDR, who realizes that Europe's war is the US's war, and we will talk about that more next class when he will sign the Lend-Lease, getting America more actively involved in the war.